When she said, "I still want us to be friends," I smiled. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know what else to do. It's strange, isn't it? How someone can walk out of your life, yet still ask to stay and adjust on new, easier terms for them. Friends. That single word cut deeper than any insult could. It sounded polite, mature, even thoughtful. But to me, it was the softest way of saying, I don't love you anymore. That night, the city outside my apartment glowed, like it always did. Neon signs blinking, cars sliding through rain-slick streets, but it all looked different. The reflections on the glass felt colder. The noise of the world kept going while mine had stopped. I sat in the dark. Her last message still open on my phone. Let's stay friends. I really don't want to lose you completely, I whispered to myself. You already did. But she wasn't there to hear it. You don't realize how empty a home can feel until the person whose laugh filled it is gone. Every corner echoes differently. Even silence sounds heavier. People think heartbreak hits like a storm, loud, violent, full of tears. But the truth is quieter. It's the stillness after the storm. When you're left cleaning up pieces of yourself you didn't know could break. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, letting the rain outside speak for me. Asterisk. Her name was Emily. She wasn't the most beautiful woman in the room when I met her, but she had something rarer, warmth. She made people feel seen. We met 3 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday. I was the kind of guest who stands near the food table, avoiding small talk, scrolling my phone between polite nods. Emily was the opposite, laughing, moving from one group to another, telling stories, brightening the room. At one point, I spilled my drink because she smiled at me. She burst out laughing, handed me a napkin, and said, "Well, at least you made an impression." That was our beginning. We started talking after that night, little messages that turned into long conversations. She had a way of making ordinary things sound interesting. If I texted "just got home," she'd reply, "Tell me what your home smells like right now." It was strange and charming, the kind of curiosity that pulls you in before you realize it. Our first date was at a bookstore cafe. She ordered mint tea. I had black coffee. She teased me for being the serious type, and I teased her for using too much sugar. By the end of that night, we both knew something was starting. The next months were filled with small, happy things, late-night walks, shared playlists, her head on my shoulder while we watched movies neither of us finished. She'd fall asleep first, and I'd stay awake a little longer, watching her breathe and thinking, I could spend my life like this. She was light, and I was gravity. Somehow, we balanced each other when we moved in together. We were still young enough to believe love alone could solve anything. Our apartment was small, 1 bedroom, creaky floors, and a balcony big enough for 2 chairs and 1 stubborn plant that refused to die. But to us, it was everything. We built routines. I'd make coffee in the mornings. She'd hum while getting ready. We fought sometimes about dishes, laundry, money, but always ended up laughing because neither of us could stay mad long. I proposed to her 2 years later. It wasn't cinematic, no fireworks, no crowd, no photographer hiding behind trees. Just us, takeout boxes, and city lights below. I told her I didn't need perfect moments, just a lifetime of honest ones. She cried, said yes, and hugged me so tight I could feel her heartbeat match mine. For months after that, everything revolved around our future. Wedding plans, guest lists, apartment hunting, dreams of a honeymoon somewhere by the sea. I worked overtime to save more. She took on extra projects to decorate our place. We were a team, or at least I thought we were, but sometimes love changes quietly. It doesn't announce its exit. It just stops showing up. Asterisk at first. I didn't notice. I was too busy chasing the future to realize the present was slipping away. Emily started coming home later. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd say, "Just work stress." I believed her because that's what love does. It gives benefit of the doubt. But her laughter changed. It became shorter, almost forced. Her hugs felt distracted. Sometimes she'd be scrolling her phone, smiling faintly. And when I asked what was funny, she'd say, "Oh, nothing." I remember the night it first hit me that we weren't us anymore. We were eating dinner, her favorite pasta, and halfway through, she said, "Do you ever feel like people change too fast?" I looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Like one day you're sure about something, and the next day you're not." I smiled gently, thinking she was just tired. Maybe that's why love is work, I said. You choose the person every day, even when it's not easy. She nodded, but her eyes were elsewhere. After dinner, she went to bed early. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at 2 half-empty plates, feeling a kind of loneliness I couldn't name yet. That was 6 months before she ended it. Asterisk. The last few weeks before the breakup were filled with signs I refused to see. She started spending more time with her friends, especially one named Lena, someone I'd met several times at gatherings. Lena was kind, smart, always polite. She and Emily had been best friends since college. Whenever Emily mentioned her, there was always warmth in her tone. I never suspected anything. Why would I? Trust was the foundation of what we had built. But as Emily grew distant, Lena seemed to appear more in her stories. Lena and I went to this new cafe. Lena says I should try painting. Again, Lena thinks I'm overworking. Myself, it wasn't jealousy, I felt it was invisibility. Wake up alone because Emily had gone out early. I'd come home to find her already asleep. Conversations turned into checklists. Did you pay the bill? What time is your meeting? We should call your mom this weekend. I started wondering if this is how love fades not through betrayal. But through silence, then came the night of the talk. We sat on the balcony, the same place I had proposed. The air smelled of rain, and the lights from other apartments flickered like tiny reminders that life goes on everywhere, even when yours pauses. She took a deep breath. I don't know how to say this without hurting you, I said quietly. Then don't. Just say it honestly. She looked down. I love you, but not the same way anymore. I've been trying to find that feeling again, but it's not there. You deserve someone who's sure. The world blurred. I could still hear the traffic below, the hum of distant music, but it all felt far away. Then came the words that would echo in my head for months. I still want us to be friends. Friends, I smiled, because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't beg. I didn't ask her to stay. Sometimes silence is the only dignity you have left. She left the next morning. Took half her clothes, her art supplies, and that stubborn plant from the balcony. I didn't stop her that night. I found one of her notes on the fridge. Please don't hate me. You're the best thing that happened to me. But if I was the best thing that happened to her, why did she leave? Asterisk, in the weeks that followed, I lived in routine. Work, home, sleep, repeat. Her toothbrush stayed in the bathroom for a while. I couldn't throw it away. Her mug tootha, one with the chipped handle, she loved. These small objects became ghosts that refused to leave. Friends tried to help. Some said, go out, meet new people. Others said, give her space. She might come back. But the truth was, I didn't want to move on yet. I wasn't ready to rewrite my story without her. Nights were the hardest. The bed felt too big. I'd catch myself reaching for the other pillow, forgetting she wasn't there. That's when I learned something about heartbreak. It doesn't heal with time alone. It heals when you finally stop replaying the same what-ifs in your head. I didn't know it then. But life was already preparing an unexpected twist, one that would test my forgiveness, my boundaries, and my idea of love itself. The days after the breakup blended together. Morning light came through the curtains, but it didn't feel warm anymore. The world outside carried on, buses running, people rushing, cafes opening, but I moved through it like a shadow. I didn't delete her number. I couldn't. It stayed pinned to the top of my messages like a habit I couldn't unlearn. Every time my phone vibrated, my heart jumped and then sank when it wasn't her. For weeks, I replayed our last conversation over and over. I love you, but not the same way. Those words burned like a quiet echo that never left the room. I wanted to hate her, but I couldn't. You can't hate someone you still miss at work. I pretended everything was fine. I smiled in meetings, cracked small jokes, met deadlines. But when I came home, the mask slipped. That's the thing about heartbreak. It doesn't show up in your schedule. It hides between your sentences some nights. I'd sit on the balcony with my untouched coffee, staring at the city lights we once admired together. The same buildings, same sky, but everything felt hollow. One night, out of instinct, I messaged her. I hope you're okay. She replied hours later, thanks. I'm good. Hope you're doing well too. That was it. A conversation that once felt endless now ended in 2 lines. That's how love fades, not in a fight, but in small, polite exchanges that mean nothing and hurt everything. A few weeks later, I met Lena again. It wasn't planned. I ran into her at a small coffee shop near my office. She was sitting alone by the window, reading something on her laptop. When she saw me, she smiled softly, not out of surprise, but with a kind of knowing. The kind of smile people give when they already understand your pain without asking. "Hey," she said gently, "how are you holding up?" I almost lied, said I'm fine, but something about her eyes made me honest. "I'm trying," I said quietly. She nodded, closed her laptop, and gestured to the empty seat. "Sit, you look like you need a break." We didn't talk about Emily at first. She just asked about my work, my plans, my sleep, ordinary things that somehow felt like care. When I did mention Emily, Lena didn't rush to defend or blame anyone. She just listened. Listening, it sounds simple, but when you're broken, it feels like a gift. Over the next few weeks, we crossed paths more often. Sometimes at the same cafe, sometimes on quiet evening walks near the park. We never made plans, but somehow the universe kept aligning our paths. She told me about her own life, her job as a designer, her love for quiet places, her complicated relationship with her parents. She wasn't trying to fill Emily's place. She wasn't even trying to fix me. She was just present. Presence, that's something I had forgotten the value of one evening. After work, we ended up at the park where Emily and I used to go. The benches were still the same. The sound of children playing in the distance. The smell of rain-soaked grass. I told Lena it's strange being here. Feels like walking into a memory that doesn't belong to me anymore. She looked around and said, "Then make new ones." Her words were simple, but they stuck with me. Maybe healing wasn't about erasing the past. Maybe it was about creating enough new moments that the old ones finally fade quietly. We sat there in silence, watching the sunset. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to check my phone. I wasn't waiting for a message that wouldn't come. But healing isn't a straight road. Some days, I'd wake up fine. Others, I'd find myself scrolling through old photos again. Her smile, our vacations, the morning selfies when our eyes were still half asleep. Sometimes I'd whisper her name without meaning to. Old habits die slow. One night, after a particularly rough day, I got a message from Emily out of nowhere. "Hey, just checking in. Hope we're still friends." I stared at it for a long time. Friends, that word again. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I realized replying would only open old wounds. Some conversations only exist to remind you you've outgrown them. Instead, I put my phone face down and went for a walk. Halfway down the street, I saw Lena standing outside a bakery, holding 2 paper cups of tea. She smiled when she saw me. "You look like you need this." "How do you always know?" I asked. She laughed softly. "It's not hard to read. You wear your emotions like subtitles." I laughed too, maybe for the first time in weeks. That night, we walked aimlessly, talking about everything except the past. She told me about her favorite books. I told her about the songs that helped me fall asleep. We didn't talk about Emily, but somehow she was still part of the silence between us. When I dropped her home, she said something that I still remember clearly. "People always talk about love like it's something you fight for, but sometimes it's something you let go of so you can finally breathe again." At that moment, I realized she wasn't talking about Emily. She was talking about me, about learning. To let go of the version of myself that existed only to please someone else, the next few months felt different. I started sleeping better. I started cooking again. Not out of routine, but because I wanted to. I even redecorated the apartment, changed the curtains, painted one wall a soft gray. It felt like claiming my space again. Lena would drop by sometimes, bringing small things, a new mug, a plant, a book she thought I'd like. Nothing romantic, nothing expected, just kindness. I noticed how she never walked on emotional eggshells around me. She didn't tiptoe around my pain. She treated me like a person, not a broken project. And slowly, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There were no sudden sparks or movie-like confessions. It was quiet, steady, real. She became the calm my storm had been missing.